phone handy. Uh-oh. Oh, here it
You
is.
do you need
Got
your
it.
phone? Yeah, to
Okay,
do
let's
it.
see what is going on. Okay, here we go. All right. No, I'm just gonna do the engineering from my phone, which means I'll pull up Facebook and YouTube so I can look at the comments and make sure everything's okay.
All right, cool.
You can hear me all right?
I can. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
good.
gonna
Yeah,
put the
we're good.
volume up a little louder on my
Okay,
end,
that's
but
there it goes. All right. Now, yeah, here we go. All right. Okay, here we are. It's April the 25th. For some of us, it's the 26th. It's 5 p.m. Mountain Time, right? 7 p.m. New York. This is episode number 68. JoAnne Palladino. We haven't sat down and talked in 4 or 5 years, so it's going to be interesting. I would say probably pre-COVID, right? Yeah.
yeah,
And what a huge period that 3 or 4 years was with the energies being so confronting and just all the different things happening, and a tremendous number of people woke up. You know what I mean? you know but yeah, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming in
thank
and
you.
sharing sacred space with me. And yeah, let's just go wherever you want to go with it, and I'll follow.
Yeah, I well, good to be and see you again. And it's funny how I measure. I don't know if you do, but it's always like, oh, it was pre-COVID. When did we see each other last? Pre-COVID. And it seems like yesterday, actually. I mean, it's 5 years or so now. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree with that.
how
Time is There's a lag. I'm sorry. I thought there was. Keep going.
no. Yeah, no, no. Yeah, I thought about, what to be with today and explore. And what's been up for me, not that it's necessarily new, but maybe a deeper felt quality, and that's the Christ within, the Christ consciousness awakening. And could you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think
Okay.
you're yeah, I mean that kind of hits the nail on the head. I mean, there's several ways we could describe it because it's true multi-stream, multi-dimensional. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, soul, the Christ consciousness, and the what would you say? And I'm not saying this in a negative way, but I'm going to say the disruption that it causes in our human experience as the human starts to get acclimated with, hey, I actually am soul. I am this. I can be this. I feel like that's kind of where we're at because uh, I don't know. It just feels like walking the talk is being supported somehow, and we've spent 68 episodes trying to figure out what's going on, and all we can get to is there's something going on. Uh, it's hard to explain. I guess there's a lot of different ways to approach it, but yeah. So what is that? What is, and I like the word that you use, the equality, because there's so many different attributes that we're yet to discover or yet to experience in a deeper way. But how's that been for you? I mean, I think there's been a lot of individual expansion going on the last couple of years, especially this year. But how's it been for you? How are you feeling that Christ consciousness within you? How does that parlaying into your experience?
Well, I feel a big piece here is the felt quality and not just a word or a discussion about it, even though we're going to explore it. But it's more what it feels like energetically, how it resonates. Um, the word that's coming up is like being in a state of mind, the heart mind is, I think, significant now. And I feel it's foundational. Again, whatever words we use to describe, whether I am soul, I am, the Christed one. To me, they're woven together. They're not necessarily separate. And whatever words or practices resonate with someone to get you in the state of unity consciousness, um, that's beautiful. That's kind of where I'm at. And not to say this is how someone needs to do it and this is the right way, this is the wrong way. Really removing myself from um, the right or wrong, the duality, of it. So, yeah, I'm feeling that the full moon, this last full moon kind of kicked my butt. And they usually do, but it was a different level. And I was like, something's cooking again. It's always cooking again. And it was that, and Easter, and I'm not a practicing Catholic, though I grew up, Catholic. The the crucifixion, the resurrection and ascension, like I felt it differently this year. Like I was kind of feeling these waves. I was feeling expansive and just not trying to figure it out, like what's going on, to say something is different, something is shifting, again. Um, and I feel, there's many practices out there that tend to be intellectual, which again, it's all fine, but um, the knowledge could get overwhelming and distract you. And I feel the stillness, the quiet, the cultivation of connection to soul and the Christed one within. For me, it affects vibrationally in a different way. It is that felt quality and begin to, engage in the world even, more, more awake, more aware. So that there's something about it that has kind of heightened itself since the last full moon, which was, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. I'm not even quite sure. Maybe a little more.
Well, anything that happened in April was, and last weekend was a really huge weekend, and everything you described, I would just add the geomagnet, and I don't follow that stuff, but there was like 2 days of geomagnetic storms, and there was obviously flares and spikes, and I mean, it was a wild tsunami.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
but yeah, I like what you said about the Ascension Resurrection. It feels different, and like you were saying at the end there, it feels different. Like we can see our vibrational field. You can see the effect of it. It's being met in a less and less distorted manner. And yeah, and you're right. I think that's another thing that's been becoming more obvious is like I had someone here the other day, they were a practitioner and they were just telling their story, like storytelling, like you
yeah,
were.
yeah.
And they were like, yeah, and I have this way that I do things and it works for some people and some people something else is going to work. You know what I mean? So there's
Hmm.
kind of like this and I'm bringing it down to there's got to be one modus operandi, one way to easily and gracefully navigate or sustain ourselves, in the physical, let's just say neutrality, divine neutrality or 0 point. And that is how we treat each other. And I don't mean to sound like, it's just so easy. I'm just saying it's actually to me code that we've gotten to the point now where we can apply it instantly, like in a sacred space as I intend for this to be, as we open up totally and be transparent and to actually actually step into each other's shoes. I mean, we're one. And so I don't know. I'm starting to see something that's subtle. It's not like perfect, but it's something that hey, we can do this. Like nothing's written in stone. We can actually flip this thing at any time, any situation, any connection. And then the last thing I was going to say, you brought up about how do we get to talking about lineage, ancestry, or
Oh yeah, I
relatives, or
look
I
like my
forget.
mother when look in the mirror. I
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
hi Marie.
But yeah, and then and you know what I mean though. But then if you look at our conversations, like if you take this show, the show as an example, 10 years ago, or 8 years ago, or 6 years ago, whatever. Uh, Many, and I was included, many people would be like, yes, you got to love the mother, but you don't know my mother, kind of thing. But what I'm seeing is more of the reverence, uh, clarity, awareness of actually who these playmates have been. And so you have a new perspective of what we saw as antagonists. So it's like all these little signs of I guess you would say a more comfortable ease and grace. And then of course the backdrop is, the world movie script. It's like we're in the middle, like the eye of the hurricane or something.
Always changing that script.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I just want to bring a piece in here about, you mentioned, being kind to each other. I think that's how you said it. Um, but we haven't been kind to ourselves, really. And that's for me, it's the place to begin. That's the place to begin. Um, and even if there's someone that has the trait of being a people pleaser and always, putting themselves out there and helping and, oh, you need this done and I'll be there and I'll take care of it. And, you know, there's something underneath that because they always tend to put themselves last, get exhausted, possibly get sick, possibly get resentful, but they're putting themselves out there because there's probably something underneath it that I'll be loved, I'll be seen, I have a purpose. And what if they don't have that? So, it's really looking at, and again, I've been doing this for years. How am I treating myself? How am I having this conversation with myself? Am I doubting? Oh boy, that inner critic, that criticism, not good enough, smarter than, they're smarter than, I could never do, which is this interesting victim perpetrator that we have within ourselves. Um, and we don't realize it because we're brought up in a certain way. And if you care for yourself and like talking about loving yourself, like, was that even like, what are you talking about? Especially, growing up. Now it's starting to happen, but that was always reflected as selfish. Doesn't matter if you're tired, you go and help them. So it's the sacred boundary, perhaps, that's the word that's coming up, the sacred boundary for oneself. So the loving kindness, imagine if we were truly in that state, fully embodied in that state for oneself. And it's almost like this is from touching me right now, but how differently we would engage with the neighbor, with the stranger, with the mother who raised us as best as she could, that kind of thing. So that kindness, it sounds simple, doesn't it? And that just that little word kindness, but I'm not going to be kind to them because they cut me off. Or, we have these stories, but if we're in the state of kind of engaging in life um, with a broader perspective, not necessarily being in it, but viewing it from a more compassionate, beautiful wisdom, and seeing beyond what we see or what we think. We create the stories. We're really good at that. Seeing someone, what they look like, and we immediately go, oh, they're this, you know? So, gosh, complete and unconditional love and acceptance. Like, what a beautiful space to be in, and having that as our foundation to engage in this wonderful world we live in.
To
That's
share.
crazy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you hit it on the head, and you're right. You're right. I stand corrected. I mean, I seriously, because the truth is, I mean, I loved hearing your explanation because it became so simple to me. It's like, oh my God, well, you know, if the object of the game is to know yourself better and essentially love yourself more, and then with that comes respect and honor and the grace and you know, the acknowledgement, um, then the less time we spend trying to work out the bugs focused on others' behaviors. Now, that may have been part of an experience, but to process that within ourselves, because I found that these energies, God, I don't know how far we would go back, but I'm going to say March, well, April, maybe end of March. Um, but I mean, April with that 4/4 was just came out with a bang, but it's like a deeper sense of like you think, oh, well, I'm not judgmental, but then you go deeper. And I have these conversations with myself, and it's like, wait a minute. If you think you know something that someone else doesn't know, you're a narcissist. You're actually in a superior frame of mind, and it's a real subtle thing. So going back to what you were saying earlier, is that it's these things occur, like you were saying, how they do, but I think some of it too is we're just the giver, the overgiver is like just patterned. It's such an embedded pattern that
It is.
it takes a little time, and that goes back to what you were saying as well about the self, uh, the relationship with self. Because really, if the object of the game is energy vibration, then you're exactly right. I mean, taking care of myself is, and I love what you said about the sacred boundaries because it's probably the first time I've actually, and I've heard somebody say something similar, but it's the first time I've heard it where I understand it to be my boundaries, and my boundaries don't involve anyone. They're not about putting a wall up with this person or that person, as we all had to go through. But it's more of a boundary, my sacred boundary. I'm second naturally going to somebody says, "Hey, I need this help" or whatever.
Yeah.
Second nature starts to kick in. And you go, "Wait a minute, why am I doing this?" There's no right or wrong. It's just like, why am I doing this? Is this an equal exchange, kind of thing. And so I feel like that's the type of depth of the dialogue within us and that's occurring. And at the same time, there seems to be this invisible thread that's pulling us all together even tighter than ever,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Mm-hmm.
pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. The the piece of the sacred boundaries. First of all, it's okay to have boundaries. Let us even start there because that hasn't um been in the human consciousness either. It's like it's okay for you to do this, and that's self-abuse sometimes. I'm kind of talking the extremes, but it's woven in different ways. And the gifts that triggers bring us. Triggers are the gems, I feel. And when you're, in the state of conscious observer, master observer, however you want to, describe it, kind of um, being with what is unfolding on all levels. I see it as like this multi-dimensional chessboard. Yeah. And, I don't want to step in. Let me kind of step back and, and not necessarily be in a state of evaluating what's going on, but more of a state of like, how's this feeling right now? What I'm looking at and, and taking in and, all of that. Where are my rubs? Where are my triggers? Where am I completely at peace? Um, how do I want to engage? Do I want to engage? All of that. And I have found through the years when someone asks or invites me to whatever it could be, or it's not an, I don't have necessarily an automatic response anymore, but it's more of like, let me get back with you, especially if, I'm like, I'm not really sure. Instead of like saying yes to please them, or I'm supposed to say yes, or it's my responsibility to say yes. I really give myself time to have that self inquiry and go, is that something I really want to do? Similar to what you were saying, is that something I want to engage in? And my body tells me yes or no, usually. My body's my informant. It's my communicator, If I get this, if I feel this contraction, I pay attention to that. I really pay attention. Or, if there's this welcoming, relaxed, um, sort of this openness, this fluidity, a whole different answer. But I give myself permission to say, gosh, that sounds really good, but let me just feel into that, or let me check my schedule. Yeah, that's another way of saying to give, to honor myself, for my well-being. And I've been doing this for a long time, kind of this engagement really as a protection, because the energy is intense for me out there. It's intense. So I really choose when I go somewhere, where I'm going to go, who I'm going to go with, what time I'm going to go, because it's it's it affects me. And I have to like protect this shield right here, you know? So,
Yeah, in and out. Plan your escape before you even enter, right?
yeah.
Um, yeah, you said a lot there too. I mean, some have talked about the methods. Communication has changed. It's, let's say it's made up of 6 or 8 variables. You know what I mean? And it's altering. Kind of like our active consciousness, as Franco would talk about as an example, the ego being part of our active consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
subconscious, the
Mm-hmm.
and that it's still there, but it's moving into a different place. It's like a reformation of things. And so there's all these different ways, like what you were talking about was reminding me that, it's very interesting because we can spot programs, and we all have blind spots. But I
Yeah.
think the important thing, for me anyway, is like some of the things that are coming to the surface is kind of taking the book out of the off the desk, and the test is there. And the test is easy because we've already lived the book. And as an example would be like how personal we take programs, and to your point, programs like being falling back, or saying yes
Mm-hmm.
before I thought, even though
Yeah.
I've been making it a habit not to, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, because
Yeah.
as you were
Yeah.
saying earlier, it all comes down to ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
if we can take the personal out of it, and move into a space of not judging our human being, the experience of the human being. And not only do our parents then become the iconic influences that they are, by the very birth they gave us,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
our, our growth and love of ourself and understanding of ourself is going to reverberate. And it's not just empty words anymore. To me, humility is the main ingredient because it comes when, and just to put it in these terms, when I'm humiliated. And what I mean by humiliated might be embarrassment, self-embarrassment,
Yeah,
self-humiliation.
yeah.
When I can say, you know what, that's me. Yes, I'm have a superior mentality sometimes. Yes, I can be a narcissist. Yes, I can be a pessimist. Yes, I'm all of it. And
We're all
so,
of it. Yeah.
yeah, and so when we have these pills to swallow, because that's what all this energy is doing. And the more and more I read, it's, hey, it's in the body, it's in the body, it's in the body. And I've seen too many examples right up to this morning of people doing the work through their body and having extreme and potentially critical situations, and many, many women talking about things that were happening in their body, particularly earlier this year, as there was, I would say, like healing occurring in the lower chakras, as their
Hmm.
energies
Hmm.
have brought us to this point. But yeah, but when we the most, anyone that's hard, or at times in our lives on others is always hardest on themselves. And I think we can all speak to that. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's like so that's where the conversation and the gold is. And like and as I was listening to you in the beginning, because I was like, okay, well, yeah, this consciousness, this Christ consciousness is not just something out there. You know what I mean? I
No,
don't have to
yeah.
prove it's that I have it or prove my, my soul. I am this.
Hmm.
And that's possibly the biggest topic of disclosure there is, that
Hmm.
maybe we don't know it yet.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, the mind, the intellect, the ego won't get it. It never will. When I first heard that, you know, there's the Christed one in me, I thought that was crazy. Like there's no way, you know. But engaging in the path, the way of the self-inquiry, the stillness, um, being very aware of what triggers me and not being, reactive with it. Um, it took a while to first kind of get it, but it's more about embodying it. And that takes devotion. And again, whatever level that is, everybody's, we do it in our different ways. So we hear this, we've read about it. There's a level of belief, but the ego will never get it. It's like being human, the ego is part of our existence. For me, the shift is to no longer have the ego run my show in my life. It's there because I'm human, and yeah, I'll get triggered. I'll catch it right away. Okay, what's cooking here? But it's no longer being the director of my life, if you will. It's the higher level of, the awareness, and then what do we do with that awareness? And engaging in a higher level of consciousness, a higher vibration, more connected to soul, you begin to navigate in a much different way. And the parts of us in the personality won't be tugging, or if it does, you're again, from my experience, I catch it really quickly and I don't go down the rabbit hole or, regret. And hey, I'm still, learning, but
Man,
but that's
no, but
been kind of my primary.
yeah, and I feel that, and it's not, at least I haven't seen it talked about a lot, but this is the kind of stuff that I believe is happening to many of us. I believe it was what brought us together years ago. I believe it's what, all this convergence that we've had. And something's definitely different now. There's something
Absolutely.
going on that's a bit strange. And I do feel like it's getting, there's an old saying in the Ascension, don't take anything personal, but it's personal. So in other words, it's all for you. And
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and
yeah.
these things are going deeper and having more impact. And they can be, to what you're saying, that absolutely can be arrested, healed, and redistributed, and you move on. Because really, the thing that continues to pull us back is all the same thing. And that is this whole thing. Like you were saying about, the doing stuff, like the mentality, like, going to war. As a man 100 years ago, if you didn't go to war, you were a draft dodger and they executed you. So this was and we know this, how embedded it's all been. But I like the idea where it becomes, well, with beyond the word, it's a new
Hmm.
word, it's a new vibration, it's sacred. Like, we
I
don't
love that
know
word.
how
Yeah.
to be sacred moment by moment. We don't have to be the Dalai Lama moment by moment or a nun, but we can certainly bless our food. We can certainly bless our environment. We can be grateful, uh, because it may not make a difference, and what will happen. But I think we proved that it does make a difference, and that's what's brought us all
Yeah,
together.
I
So
feel,
let's keep
yeah,
going.
I
Let's
feel,
keep going and reporting what it feels like as a human being, like you're saying.
yeah,
Most of the time I catch it, and sometimes we won't. But that self judgment, that self loathing, uh, are key indicators. The patterns and the feelings, like you said about feeling things. I mean, the body's gone steroidal, and
yeah,
you know what I mean. It's like the body's screaming at everybody. And you're right, it's central command. So I think we made some great progress, and I think there's something to the spirit, soul, body, the body being an equal part of that triad, like the technology maybe that it is. Or uh, let me ask you this, and this has been talked about for a long time, and I'm a believer. Okay, I can't prove it. Um, the transition of the carbon body to the light body. After all these years, I've seen little flashes here and there, experienced things in myself, but it's truly our DNA changing, our blood changing, our bones changing, our body changing. And so I'm thinking about putting up a post on social media here pretty quick. I've been thinking about it for a couple of days. Does anyone have any information, imagery, whatever, on this occurring that we've been talking about all this time? Because if this is actually happening, we can start to bring this into a greater level of awareness and consciousness, and that in itself will probably increase our above telepathy, communication skills, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what are your thoughts on that? I know you've worked with people for a long time,
yeah.
and you've been in these communities a long time.
Ah.
Do you feel like that's happening? Are you
Um,
like me and don't, believe it, but I can't prove it? I just thought about this idea. Go ahead. Thank you.
well, I'm going to answer it by I know nothing. I mean, I don't know. I could share what I have felt, and this has been going on for years. And it started, I don't know, it's been years. Um, when I started spontaneously, channeling and speaking light language, and I was getting these messages that, oh, this is about changing your DNA. Now I'm like, what? So that's kind of my level of I get messages, I see the messages. Do I know scientific? Is it really happening? I don't know. But there's many out there that are talking about it, and some could talk about it like they do know or they have experience. What has also been shared is that we're in the process of the the changing. And we're kind of the new tipping point. Where I witness it is in children. I look at the children and especially at their eyes, I'm like, oh my, they are very wise. They know, like, there's a level of knowing. Now, do I know that for a fact? No. But again, it's the energetic that I see them, I look at them, I just observe how they're viewing the world, how they're engaged. I was like, this is what we're seeing from the newborns and even, older than that. Um, but it's going to take a while, and we're tasting it is how I feel. We're tasting it. How am I tasting it? I got messages years ago. I didn't know what that was all about. Again, that's not something I was wanting to know or learning or anything. It's just like, oh, this is changing their DNA. And I'm like, what? And then I talk to other people and they're like, oh, yes, me too. I've been hearing that too. So I feel it is happening and I mean, I don't know how many years. I don't know. 100? I don't know. When,
Well, if
when
they're
we,
anything like April, it might be like 500.
well, we have a bit to go. And again, it starts with ourselves. I feel, what's happening, the bulldozer effect that has been going on in the US, kind of like, okay, let's just destroy it all. You know, that we're witnessing like the deepest shadow. It's like right in our face. It's like amazing to me. I'm like every day I'm like, oh, okay, there's another one.
Yeah.
And it's
It
and it's deep, it's dark, and it's right here. It's like, oh, we're so close, we're pushing your nose in it,
your nose
you
is up
know.
against the window.
That's right.
Uh and like where I'm at is like, is there okay. So last night, okay, I had a download last night and it was like talking, how people talk about contracts are over, but it was a very broad kind of thing. It wasn't like individual. It was like, and then as it kept going, it was like, yeah, the contract with the old world is over. That's kind of what came in. It wasn't about those other types. It was the old world period, the old operating system, if you
Yeah.
will,
Yeah.
that they're up. And so then I started going, okay, like you're saying, well, you still see these things pop up, and the body's telling you that doesn't feel good, that doesn't look, whatever the case is. And then you go into the patterns of, oh my God, those assholes are, oh, I may stop that, so we're getting it.
Really, there's a
And
lot
I
of that.
started
Like,
to
oh,
go,
yeah.
and I started to go, I've been realizing, talking to myself, as we all do, right? And I was like, I have a greater chance to dip in, get the code, and come back out. I picture like diving in a pool and popping out. Uh, Based on my perspective, my perception, my reality,
Hmm.
in terms of judgment of that shadow, as opposed to looking at shadow as shadow. Shadow is one component, right? So I was like, oh, I actually don't like that shadow, you know? It's not that I have a problem with it, but if I don't like it, I might need to keep it there for a second. And so it went into this longer thing, which was basically And again, I know these are just words, but it's like embracing the shadow. Almost like the shadow was like a little tornado in front of me, and I just put my arms around it and realized, you know what? This is gold.
Hmm.
This is actually, as we look at this from the soul's eyes, which again, like the Christ consciousness embodiment that you're talking about, what does that look like? Well, we're actually walking and talking, understanding in a field of awareness, awake in all regards, in the human form, uh, understanding that this is what we came for.
Hmm.
So it's almost like a flip. I used to look for the shadows and look, and it wasn't even that. It was like judge the shadows and others and me, the destruction that would bring, the
Hmm.
charge, the negativity, the flipping back and forth. But now it's a different situation to where we see that as the program it is.
Hmm.
And and then for me anyway, that's where I feel like, oh, I'm really starting to understand how I feel now. Because my perception or my conception of feelings was these raw emotions. You know what I mean? Like anger and sad, you know what I mean? But
Hmm.
now it's more like you were saying, it's your GPS.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. Somebody asked me this or this happened or that happened. How do you feel? Take a
Hmm.
breath. Oh, okay. Where before it was the mask of the emotion out here. Oh, or whatever the case is, whatever that was,
Hmm.
instead of pulling back in and saying, okay, oh wow, I'm getting this pain in my shoulder. That's
And
weird.
ignoring it.
And then you just go, wait a minute, okay, so yeah. So yeah, it's all kind of coming back home, but it again, it's a different set of streams here. I mean, and the human is on point in a way that's got some kind of power in it, even if it's just one person. I mean, there's something about shining through the bullshit, all these incarnations, and there's something to be said for that. That is grace. That is, the last thing I was thinking today is I took a long walk today, and it was like, okay, oh, I forget how the question started. It was like, okay, if it was almost like if the idea is to get to perfection while we're in form, then what happens? You know what I mean? And then it was like, well, now wait a minute. What's the opposite of perfection? Imperfection. So then I started looking at both of them and I thought, well, and my soul was like, okay, so why would these two be any different than any two other polarities? And then it ended with, okay, here's where I want you to think about, Todd. It was now you can see the imperfections in the perfections, because there wouldn't be imperfection if there wasn't perfection. So if perfection didn't exist, and there would be no such thing as imperfection. So there you go, pal. So now you can see the perfection of the imperfection, and you can love the shadows. And you say to yourself in the world, you go, hey, I was here before, I'm here during, and I'll be here after. I ain't going nowhere, and I love it all. And I love all of it about myself, and I love it all about you and the other, and it's truly, and it's not just words. It's what you said earlier about what it was, the frequencies, the vibration, the field.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's our what do you call it, Merkaba in
Hmm.
form,
Hmm.
and it's a lot more than this form. Heart Math Institute. Plenty of
Hmm.
information on the electromagnetic projection of the heart, and the last thing I want to say too, just to give you your your props, and so many sisters like you and some brothers, but yeah, when it comes to the subject of DNA and reprogramming DNA, I mean, I've been with Morgan 10 years, and she was talking about that the day I met her, and so that's a real thing. I believe that. I believe the sisters and many brothers now are starting to have anchored in these types of things. They brought in that wisdom. I was just curious from I guess, my human ego standpoint, or something. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't that, but wow, I wonder if anyone has developed imagery or something or looked into it. And then I started thinking, well, certainly they're not going to want that stuff getting put out. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm sure there's many. I will
yeah.
say that. My sense is there's many humans that have it more figured out than we do at this moment. But the speaking about, the masks, it's we have a closet of them. We you open the closet and say, where am I going to go today? And who am I going to engage in? And all right, I need this mask and that mask and this mask and just to get through the day. That's the old paradigm. That's when the ego was truly running the show and not, we were in that level of consciousness. And I mean, we are still, because look at the world, look at the US, we're still there. But when we look at, I mean, what is perfection? That's a whole discussion in itself, probably. But when we look perfection, imperfection, or this is good, this is bad, anger's bad, you know, if we look at it in a non-dual state, it just all is. It just all is. Now, from the view of soul, master observer, it's not denying any of them. There's a lot of healing in that. When we don't resist the parts of ourselves or the shadows, there's different words. We don't resist it anymore, but like you're saying, it's an embracing, like Yeshua he sat at the table with the leopards and the kings. you know, Rumi's poem, The Guest House. I love that poem. It's like, who's knocking on the door this morning? My sorrow, my anger, my joy, my pleaser, my tortured one. Let them all in. Well, let them sit all at the table. And when you embrace and no longer resist in a healthy, mindful way, what I've experienced, they begin to dissolve. They're no longer a trigger or a shadow for you. For me. I mean, anger was a big one for me. This was a few years ago. I went like rage was coming through me. I'm like, where the hell is this coming from? Now, my lineage on my father's side, there was a lot of rage there. I mean, I grew up with a lot of anger. I disowned that aspect of myself. And years ago, when I started, opening the door to self-inquiry, I was asked, well, express your anger. I didn't know what they were talking about. I didn't like, I was so disowned, I couldn't even get in touch with it. But what ended up happening is when I did, it actually set me free. It was, it opened me up to speak my truth, to set boundaries, to be more confident, all of those things. And then, so I had these downloads or not even downloads. It came through my body as an expression, and I knew it was coming, and I just let it happen. And it was like, all right, there's a part of me that I have this rage that's been in the shadows, like not even knowing, like couldn't even imagine that, expressing it, that rage, lineage clearing and collective clearing. I mean, for me, that's when I go through these purges. And I recently went through this anger stage. Something happened, it triggered me, and I was in it for 2 weeks. I was in it deep. And I was observing it and in it at the same time. It was like an interesting dance. And I was like, it's here for a reason. It's really here for a reason. So it's like it for me, it began to dissolve it. And it was, again, all right, there's a percentage of mine. The family still needs some clearing there. And talk about anger and rage. How much is that up in the collective right now? It's
Yeah, yeah.
it's
I
woven, it's
totally
woven through.
that's a really good point. And that's another weird kind of other side characteristic now is that the what you're exemplifying, and so many people are based on past, present, you know, tapped in a conscious and pure intentional way. Uh, you know what I mean? Uh, so that these individual expansions are really happening. That's what I'm saying. But
Oh yeah.
at the same
Right.
time, the level of distortion is what you're talking about. Like you can
Yes.
see it. You can see it, and it's a very interesting thing. And I love what your explanation there too, because I see it like this. We can look at things individually, and we can look at things collectively.
Hmm.
And I loved what you were talking about, the value of clearing the ancestral and the collective, and how you started it with, basically you got to own it yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
So, it's almost like that people pleaser over giver, which is 99.9% of everyone in these groups. Because remember years ago it was so many empath groups, but that would be their natural thing. Oh, I'm doing this on behalf of everyone. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying that
Yeah.
at some point the castle has to fall. The onus comes back and the world is no longer on your shoulders. But the way I was seeing it when you were talking about it, so you can look at it individually, you can look at it globally. And I think you made a really good point with the globally part. If you look at that as one soul,
Hmm.
one consciousness, of people that happen to be incarnated in human form, and regardless if there's other parts to that, we'll just leave it that simple for now. But um, we all know, and we could use a lot of different subjects, but let's just say child abuse, some of the nasty stuff that's been there and out there, and we've known about this. But if you go back in history, okay, I'm an old history buff, not a professional history buff, but I've done a lot of research over the years. You go back, it's everywhere. It's
Everywhere.
the Indians. It's everywhere. And I'm not going to throw a blanket and say every single group and whatever. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, in your explanation, I saw a different vision of transparency. Transparency is letting the big elephant in the room come out of the closet, or the crazy uncle or aunt in the attic come out. These are all parts of us.
Yeah.
And so it's one thing to live in as energies presented from the old paradigm, and that means prejudice and bias, and I don't want to look at it and I don't own it. It's another thing to say, oh, that's part of the field. Okay. Hey, I love you. Sit tight, and we're going to keep on walking down this road. And as your part comes up, it will come up, or whatever. But yeah, to me, that's another part of the conscious shift that's occurring, is how we're almost like a etheric uh, marinade. It's like, going through our body into the cell, back to the DNA and all that now, and that it's having this effect on us, and it's coming through, I think, I feel, because and to a great degree, we accomplish what we came here to do. Let's just say 2012 to 2024, like we
Big difference.
did the work through our
We're still doing
shadows,
it. Yeah.
that's what I mean. But like something clicked, and
Hmm.
I think there's like a ripple or an echo, or you know what I mean, or a wake coming up behind us that was operating in a field of distortion until this flip. Now we're not swimming up current, we're swimming with the current. And it's a weird thing because we've not used to it. So, and it's continually seems to be bringing in more streams, which we seem to be able to listen to all at the same time. You know what I mean? It's like there's more parts of us that are turning on. Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead. Thank you.
I'm I have a level of confidence that the awakening, the quickening will continue to happen. And that is allowing us to engage in life much differently than we have. Like the old paradigm is being washed away. And at the same time, we're seeing how unconscious humanity truly still is just based on what we're experiencing right now. And I'll just use the US as an example. Years ago, this came up was when you were sharing, how can we engage in life in a different way and or even be open to it. And this is it first took hold when it was the Boston Marathon and there was the shooting. And I don't even know what year that was. I don't know if you remember that. But somebody, people were killed and injured and all of this. And I was seeing it on TV, and what showed up for me, because everybody was like, I'll label the person the terrorist, damning them and, kill them and all of this. And I was just like, oh no, they need to be loved as much as the victims need to be loved and their families. That's, and some people thought I was crazy in that. But I'm with the violence that's going on, especially in the schools and these young children. What level of pain and suffering are they in? I can't even fathom it, but their action is showing the level of pain and suffering that they're in. And that's just not parents' fault. I don't believe. Now, there's levels, all levels to this. I'm not saying this is right or wrong. It's my view, but it's in society. It's through humanity. The video games that kids play, it's all about killing. It's not about self-love and self-respect and connection to source. And it's about destruction. So that was the first time that I actually extended love and blessings, not only to the victims and their families, but to the perpetrator and their families, and that's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's hard to
That's a,
do.
that's
Like
a,
I could feel it in my body just talking about it now.
yeah. Look, uh, a hell of a thing to consider. It really is because it's a great example. And again, I like to research stuff. So, and I do remember it very well. It was in a string of false flags as the false flags started to lose their merit and their effect. And I just so happen to know not all the story, but again, this goes back to what you're saying, and it's a perfect example of what's happening now as let's just say conversations are are happening. So there's a lot of uh I don't want to say mystery, but there's a lot of funny stuff with that whole situation. It involves a dude getting killed by a sword that was associated with the dude. I think it was his brother. I mean, I mean, there's some stuff going on there. So when when we're taking in, and the most basic one would be victim perpetrator, right? Uh, when we're taking in and coming to that ground that you're speaking of, that you came to and come to and continue to, as we all do, it's not, and you're right, it's not easy.
Oh no,
It's not easy
it's not
because
easy.
because our tendencies and our biases are cultural and embedded within us, and et cetera, et cetera. However, we're in the type of awareness now that I feel we drill down. You can drill, baby, drill. I don't mean to quote anybody, but like you can
Yeah,
take
yeah.
that point and go, you know what? What about the dude that they might have framed? What about the dude they killed with the sword? What about the real perpetrators? Are we willing to forgive the guy that pulled the trigger?
Mhm,
If so, are we willing to pull the guy that paid the guy to pull the trigger? And the entity, you know, whatever it may be, a guerrilla unit or a governmental site, whatever the case is. So I mean, it's taking us to that level. Now, the other thing that you remind me of in the way you were talking about it, and I'll just do a different picture of it. So I think over the years you can hear about narratives or heard narratives where they talked about, as an example, that the ETs just started coming around in the 40s when we dropped two bombs. And
mhm,
at the end of the day, the reason that they came in, and there's a lot of narratives about them disarming nukes and etc., is because a disruption of that sort on the Earth affects the entire solar system
mhm,
and galaxy. And let's talk about quantum entanglement. So everything essentially,
mhm.
right? So why am I bringing that up with what you were saying? Because for me, I'm always looking for ways to monitor to drive the car. And so I thought, oh, okay. So there you go. We have woken up into this place, and the name of the game is, like it or not, and like you said, it's not easy. Everything out there, anything out there, I can't give accountability to, I can't give responsibility to. I can actually affect any and all of it by the primary uh, field of energy that I have, like the balance of my energy in the long of the day.
Mhm.
And I see it the same way because I feel like that, yeah, this is the densest thing we've ever done. And the grand experiment, I'm sure we're all going to sign up again. But
Do I
the
want to? I
effect,
don't know.
but like the effect that it will have based on our acts of kindness, of walking the talk, of actually putting our money where our mouth is and getting off of all the externals and doing it right here in the now, that how that will positively affect our lineage. As an example, Pleiadian Anunnaki rift, Lyran, Orion. You could go right down the list. We have this superpower, and I believe it's such a, not a mind trick, but almost like you're playing this game and the whole time you had the key in your pocket.
That's
and
where the
and the name
diamond
of the
is.
game being
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender. I can't control anything. What can I do? Well, I can love. I
Hmm.
can be nice.
Hmm.
I can try something different. And man, we know this. We know this, we know this, we know this. And when we do it, it immediately is having impact now. And I believe that is what's different now. And
Hmm.
I'm going to say since April 1st, um, which some people say is, before the Gregorian calendar, it was a Julian calendar, and that was the first day of the year. That's why they call it April Fool's Day. I didn't know that until
Mm,
this
mm,
past
mm,
April
mm.
1st.
Huh.
Uh, Morgan showed it to me. So yeah, I mean, it's weird to think that, oh, I'm just one cell, I'm just one soul in the flower of life, and I can really affect everyone, from the human perspective. But it's another thing to take in, like, you know what? This is becoming obvious that this is what we have been. This is the intel or the code or the knowing or the awareness that we actually came in to do.
Hmm.
Talk
Hmm.
about big ovaries and big balls. I mean,
That's right.
I'm going to wake up and I'm going to apply myself to be the Christ consciousness that I am.
Yeah.
And you know, the truth is, uh, I don't think we have to say as much anymore. It just speaks for itself. And these are no longer just pretty words. I mean, I think we're serious. I think we were serious to come here. I think we're tired, but I think we're coming out the other side now, and the sun is starting to shine a little bit more every day. I really feel that. I could be wrong, you know.
I trust. I have trust in me that that will happen. And I mean, there's much what you just shared, having the sense of truth. I'll use that word, the sense of truth, that what we say, what we think, the words we use,
Mm,
the intention, the energy behind it does have a ripple effect.
mm,
It does. It's it's through here and it ripples out just like if we did the opposite of those, of
mm,
anger and damn them
mm.
and all those wonderful things us humans do to each other. And I want to
Yeah.
just bring this piece up here because we started with Christ consciousness and and Easter just happening and crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension. That's what we're in. That's exactly what we're in. But Yeshua's
Li-
teaching, right? I mean, we
yeah.
are. That's what we're doing right now. We're,
I mean,
we're
you know what? I mean,
crucifying.
that's it. It's, yeah, it's dying and living. And I just had
Rebirthing and
somebody
then the
very close to
awakening.
me at the same time. At the same, right? I mean, I just had somebody very close to me go through this physically.
Mm,
Like you know, may not be here kind of thing.
mm,
And again, a fascinating and I don't see it as an aberration. I saw it happen with Morgan. I saw it happen with three or four other sisters. Uh, this stuff with the body. Like
hmm.
if we've got to the point now where the body is coming into alignment, I don't know how else to say it. The body is going to be heard. You know, that you stuck away is coming back, and it's showing up in the body, and this body has a new voice. I mean, everything's parallel.
Mm, yeah.
It just reeks of higher alignment, what we call healing, more continuity, and regardless of the triggers slash activations, gifts that we get,
Yeah.
I think we can all say, I really do. And I haven't taken a poll or anything, but I think our higher sensitivities are coming on board and we just know things. But that, um, if you take a step back and look at it, where are you now? Where were you a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? You know, 1987 harmonic convergence, you know, boom, boom. Like the what am I trying to say? The translation from what we receive or what gets turned on in us because of our own blockages are lifted, and the experience itself is like turning into nothing. Like it's like quick, 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 and
Yeah,
and
that's
of course we have this resistance because we have these patterns, and that's where I go back to the whole thing for self-regulating. For me, is like, you know, I can't be judging anything outside of me because I need to start here. I need to figure something out here and go to, you know, and go get that in alignment because the rest will flow from there, which is what you really brought out in the first part of the show so well. The rest just comes from you. I mean, the proof is there. It's happening right before your eyes.
one of the
And it's always nice to have a few laughs at yourself too.
yeah, it's going through it and putting a chuckle in there and a smile helps. But a teaching that I embodied years ago, maybe 15 or so, which is kind of showed itself with something that you shared about not yet. I can't judge anybody out there, you know. And the teaching is nothing I experience is caused by anything outside of me. And I heard it, I read it, I studied it, and then one day something happened, a trigger, a big trigger, and it took a whole weekend that I went through the embodiment of the truth of that. Nothing I experience is caused by anything outside of me. And I was like pissed off, first of all, about that whole thing because I couldn't blame anybody anymore. I couldn't point fingers anymore. And at the same time, I had this level of fear in me because I realized I'm responsible for it all. I'm res this is I'm responsible. But when that took hold, it really shifted my life. That's when it was easier for me to have that view, that multi-dimensional chessboard that we're in, and have a better understanding, not of course myself, to be in that posture, but to have a better understanding of the person before me, in front of me, and their suffering and why they do what they do. And
Yeah.
what's going on in them is going on in me too. But I chose to
Yeah.
engage and heal and things like that. So,
Yeah. And that's, oh my God, I just saw 15555. Uh, yeah. Oh my God. What was that? What were you?
I don't know about nothing I experience is caused by anything outside of me or
Oh,
viewing
well,
people
the
in a
first
different
thing,
way.
well, the first, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And the first thing I was thinking of too is like when I started digging into this, uh, you know, like daily, well, I was like 22 and
it's like my life.
I got a book from, yeah, I got a book from a bookstore and, there was a book, page saver thing. What do you call
Yeah.
it? Bookmark. There was a bookmark in there and it was a picture, a contemporary picture I've never seen before or since of, of Christ,
Mm,
of Jesus Christ. Okay. And on the back, I put it in my wallet and I had it memorized and I had it in my wallet for years. Uh, and it said, "Nothing is going to happen to me today that you and I together cannot handle."
mm.
And I never forgot that. I used to meditate with this dude all the time. That's probably when it kind of started with that connection. But yeah, and then back to what you were saying again, it's like we had all these programs and we were in this a level of awareness and level of belief in our abilities that we went and pulled each one of them, boom, here's another one, here's another one, here's another. Yet now we've come to a place where we realize that's all one big program. And that's why I got a kick out of that perfection imperfection thing today, because it was like saying to me, don't you see how deep this program runs?
Oh
The
boy.
one program. If you're always striving for perfection, then it's going to bring in these elements of expectation, judgment. You're never good enough.
Never
And I'm
good
like, oh
enough.
my God, are you serious? So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, now I'm gonna, and like it was saying to me, now you can see the imperfections of perfection and the perfection of imperfection, and your place is in the middle.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I feel like that's what's happening. Like we're getting to the point where, and it's because people have done work where there's a big domino standing up, and all the ones around it are like knocked down. You know what I mean? And that's huge. And I've been privy to, like with Morgan and even some others, like the level of breakthrough that has occurred
Mm-hmm.
since the beginning of this month.
Mm.
And maybe it goes back to the equinox, with bookend eclipses, which is going to occur
Mm-hmm.
again in September.
Yeah, that
I
does
feel
a
like
job.
that's important. Like this
Yeah.
6 month
Yeah.
period is going to be obviously going to be interesting.
It's not dull. That's what I
No.
keep saying. How's it going? I was like, well, it's not dull.
Mm,
That's
yeah.
for sure.
But I love what you
Ah.
said too, like about the way you were explaining about that process, and I kept thinking, there it is. That's the humility. When we look at, because it happened to me, like when I first woke up, it was a couple of years on the streets, and all this,
Mhm.
like all of us with the dark night, it's not just one thing. It's like this whole thing happens to you, right? And I kept thinking, that was my frame of thought. In the first days I started walking the streets, it was like, man, I got a beautiful big heart. I love everyone. I've done the best I can, I mean, I don't deserve this.
Mm,
And
mm,
that lasted about 3 days
mm,
because my team came in and was like, yeah, bullshit. This is all you. You're
mm,
responsible for everything. And so to hear that, obviously you resist it, and then you have nowhere else to go.
mm,
And then
mm,
you mentioned it's funny how things happen again, right? But then you mentioned the solitude, silence,
mm,
that, I call it the universal isolation, or you can call it getting your thoughts together, or whatever, grounding, but that you end up there, and then and you end up there, and I don't think I could convince anyone of it, but you feel like you were talking about, you
yeah.
feel 100% I own this to the best of my, my awareness, and then the self-deprecating charge starts to fall away,
Hmm.
right?
Dissolve. Yeah. I always
I
see
think
it as
about that
like sort of
period.
this
Yeah.
this dissolving, I mean, for me, sacred medicine, my sacred medicine is stillness. It's to be still and know, you know. That's like, where do you go when you have nowhere to go? I go to stillness. And I guess there's a nourishment on all levels.
uh it's the best thing we can do. Morgan and I were talking a couple of days ago about this, about life, about how do we navigate this, this is all happening so quick, and you try to get a beat on it, and it was along the lines of triggers, activations, slash activations, um and moving into that space at such times. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, moving into a space where I'm not going to project or have the potential to project because I'm not in balance. Like we're actually catching ourselves. And that's just
Hmm.
another way to
Hmm.
describe this transition we call ascension. But yeah, so I think it's these human things that are the evidence that I asked you about at the beginning of the show. But yeah, I think this the real-time storytelling, which I've enjoyed doing these shows this year, because for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
probably 98th percentile, that even though there hasn't been the number, I mean, I've done this much in a month, 68, more than many times, but is that the human being is showing up equally with the soul. Now, what do I mean by that? I thought I meant that they're equal voice, and da 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 da. But as I look deeper at it, I realize that we're all about having our soul show up, because that's where our soul, that's our shine. But the human part, to be held in the same level of reverence, to be transparent, and to acknowledge all afflictions, all shadows, all conditions, all everything. That's power to me. That feels like power. that feels like mutual respect because you know what I mean? Because that's like, and we're talking vibration. And again, maybe, I'm delusional, but I really feel like that's probably the easiest way to try to get our arms around an explanation is our individual lives, the vibrational frequencies that we've created, and the places that it's put us, and the things that we've been presented with, and what we've achieved going through, breaking through again and again and again and again and again. I feel like that it's real.
It's
I've enjoyed
s-
this. I really have. It's
so
been fun. Thank you.
I'll just say one thing, and I am grateful, so grateful. Thank you. And I as well, heartfelt. Um, but you're really, it's talking about the soul's evolution, That's the soul
Mm.
said, okay, I'll come down and get beat up. But I mean, I am actually feeling it
Yeah.
energetically, like I that is like the expansiveness, the grace, oh gosh, I don't even like the word to be for the soul to live in a human body again, to evolve,
Mm.
to for humanity, for the universe.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's right.
oh my goodness.
I often I say
I could
probably,
feel it.
oh yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's funny how, um, no, about probably once a week, I'll go into the depths of the rabbit holes that I know of. And it's always about, for me, it's not just what you know, it's what you don't know.
Yeah, that's
So,
why I says like I know nothing. I don't
but I
know.
have an exercise and I'll go into the narrative, let's put it that way, because I believe we created this realm.
Yeah.
We're all architects. We'll get to the point where we realize it and own it all and all that stuff. But just in case I don't know what I'm talking about, I go
Give
back to this is a situation where universal law has been violated and we're in a soul reincarnation trap on the moon. And I'm not saying this stuff doesn't exist. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is this: I can go as deep as my mind will let me go, on a given day or night. And I only have one thing, and that's me. I am
Mhm.
soul, or I am Christ consciousness, or I am all of the above, or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? It's like it's the same thing. It's always
Mhm.
me. You know what I mean? Somebody wrote me today, and they're like, "Well, you're either one of four people." Boom, 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 boom. And I thought to myself, I'm not a people. I didn't write back. I was just like, I'm not a people. I'm I'm all of it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going,
Not
oh, I'm all
not
of it.
separate.
So
There's no separation here.
no. I mean, it's not like, oh, I'm all of it. And so now I'm going to go because I'm Buddha and I know everything. And but no, it's more like I am all of it. Okay. Now I go be human again. Now I got to go out like JoAnne and plan my escape before I even walk in the door. I got to get in
Protection.
and out.
It's
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
call it wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's my wisdom of
Yeah.
like, nope, not going there. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
Ah,
this has been fantastic. It was really enjoyable. It was timely. I feel good. I feel like there's a lot of code exchange, and it's a deep honor to have you here. It's a
beautiful.
deep honor to be able to
Mhm.
collaborate with people that I did years ago, and I'm sure that
Yeah,
the changes seen are mutual. It's just, and so much of it is not in the explanation. It's just in the energy. That's it. That maybe that's the kindness I was seeking, or trying to, talk about or something. But yeah, we can do this. And I really want to say I've enjoyed this and thank you very much. Blessings of grace to you and yours and all of your endeavors. And I look
yeah.
forward to seeing you again down the road.
Love, love, Todd, to both you and Morgan. So grateful for your presence. Thank you. Until next time, be well.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll see you
Bye.
on this side, the other side, or both.
Okay. Love, love,
All
love.
right.